What's up, y'all? This is Hammer here again, back with another video. And today I'm going to be talking about something quite unique. I'm going to be talking about biracials, right? Those who are mixed race. And the reason why I want to talk about it because this kind of is a follow-up to the video I made before about interracial marriage. And I think I'm going to focus on the experience of those who are biracial, the questioning around, mulattoes, and why I really do believe that people who are biracial descent are not black. Now, here's the thing. I understand, like many of you, that people who are mulatto or biracial, right, can be made up of other things. So you can be half white, half Asian, half Arab, half Asian, right? So the other combinations out there. But when I speak about biracials, I'm talking about those who are half black, right? Half black, half Asian, half black, half white, half black, half Middle Eastern. It doesn't matter what the other half is. What matters is that they are half black. And typically what we see is that half black mulattoes, half black biracials, they tend to be forced into the black classification. And the reason why they're forced into the black classification is because black people, not just in America, but I will say globally, of course, there's some exception, but it seems like black folks are the only group that are essentially forced to operate under this one drop rule. When you look across the world, every other group of people do not accept biracial as one of them, right? If you have a child who is half Middle Eastern and half Japanese, if he goes back to Japan, Japanese will tell him, look, you may be half Japanese, but you're also half Middle Eastern. So you're not one of us. If you have someone who's half white and half black, right? And he goes to the white community. The white community say, yeah, you may be half white, but you're also half black, so you're not one of us. Only when it comes to black folks are we in a situation where, and this I see this really throughout the black diaspora, where those who are biracial, who are half black, are accepted as full black people. And I feel like after the situation we saw with quote unquote Meghan Markle, we need black people as a group to reject this one drop rule. Because what ends up happening is that you'll have someone like Meghan Markle who lives all of her life being a quote unquote exotical, right? But white passing mulatto, and she's able to escape all the struggles that the average black person face. And it's not until she gets her quote unquote wake up. And throughout the whole time, right, these kind of mulattoes like Meghan Markle are always trying to distance themselves from blackness and trying to achieve whiteness. But it's not until the quote unquote white side rejects them that all of a sudden they want to be black. Most of these black biracials, black mulattoes do not want to be black. Most of them try to be white first. It's the white community that rejects them that then forces them to come back here on our side, right? Which is the reason why Meghan Markle talks about how, she until she married Meghan Markle, right, she was never treated like a quote-unquote black woman / black person. Because up until then, she was able to get away by quote-unquote being white passing. So we're going to get into the video, and we're going to break this down. Before we get into that, let's get into our intro. So right now, I'm going to cover a video by a mulatto, a biracial, right? And the reason why this matters is because it's one thing to talk about an issue from the outside, but I think that when you actually hear someone who's, a black biracial who's grown up tell you their experience, and I hear this across on law, that most black biracials, most black mulattoes do not want to be black. They don't. A lot of time what happens is it's the white society, it's other groups that force them. Remember, guys, every other group does not really operate on the one drop rule, right? If you're mixed, you're mixed. Only when it comes to black folks do quote unquote biracials, mulattoes get to be classified as fully one of us. But let's put a video and dive into it.
Hi, I'm Gia, and I just wanted to have a chat with all you mixed kids out there because I know that
And just to say fair use, fair use, fair use. Go ahead.
What we're going through is crazy and hard and difficult. And I know that it's really emotionally heavy and just as much for you as it is for me. So I wanted to talk to you because I feel like there's an experience that we're grappling with that is different than other people. So growing up, was very... growing up, just always had people ask, what are you? And as much as I tried to fit in, I always had these people reminding me of how I was different. And they would ask me, like just strangers would come up to me on the street and look at me and say, what are you? And
not guys, this aligns with what I said in the other video about how when thinking about interracial dating as a black man, you're gonna have to consider the biracial kid. And I said that, a lot of dudes don't think this far ahead. That kid is going to have issues. Let's go.
Would shift between a kind of, ooh, you're so exotic, what are you? And a kind of aggressive, I can't figure out what you are, so you need to tell it to me. And what I learned over time is that I needed to figure out how I identify. And I identify as mixed. And I had a really hard time growing up because I saw these mono-ethnic people and they would talk about their experiences and blah, 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 but I didn't feel like I saw people who looked like me and identified like me. The one exception being Tiger Woods. And I remember him growing up, he would say, I'm not one thing. If I were to say I'm black, it means that I'm denying my mother. And, it's important to me to honor.
Not guys, I want you now. The reason because this video is gonna get more and more emotional, but before she really tells the whole truth, keep this in mind, guys. Okay, for those who may not know, in America and really in the West, right? Really, I would say globally, there is a racial hierarchy in which white is at the top, black is at the bottom. And those who are mixed, and this is something Meghan Markle admitted to, right? Those who are half black biracials, they are not dumb, okay? When they grow up, wherever they are, whether it's in the UK, China, Brazil, they understand that the group of people who are at the top right now are white, and the folks who are technically at the bottom are black. And so they will a lot of times claim their mixed identity so that they don't have to be associated with blackness. Because they know that white people will never assume as white. And they know that groups of people, and because of how the one dropper works, right? They know that the way it works, that they will be essentially called black. And so they try to avoid that, saying, I'm mixed. And as the video goes on, we'll get into that, but let's go on.
All of who I am. And especially for those of us who are raised predominantly by the side of our family that isn't black, I think there's this extra kind of challenge, because it's like I grew up in this world, in this loving family with these amazing people, and they are a huge part of who I am. And most of how I identify, most of my cultural practices, most of what I'm used to, like that's me. And so for you to tell me that I'm this other thing, like it doesn't make sense to me, it doesn't feel right. So I've spent my whole life asserting the ways and making sure people knew that I'm not black, I'm mixed.
Okay, she got right into it. She got right into it. Okay, and it's gonna get more and more emotional as time goes on, but think about this, and of course, if you're a black person, you may feel a certain kind of way, but what she's saying kind of makes sense, right? Think about it from her point of view. If you're a black man, right? You know how being a black person, being part of the black diaspora, you carry a very traumatic history wherever you are, whether it's a black American here, black Jamaican, black Barbadian, black South African, black African, right? You carry the history of slavery. the history of colonization, right? The quote unquote history of King Leopold and what he did in Congo. You carry this sort of brutal Black history that Black folks across the world are very aware of. Whether it's you being a Black American here and go through Jim Crow, whether it's you being, someone in Jamaica and Haiti and being on the slave plantation, whether it's you being in Africa and being colonized. Think about what it really means when somebody says they're Black. Think about this. Because I think for Black folks, you were born into this classification. You grew up your whole life. So you're kind of, you're born into darkness, right? You're born into so you know what it's like. You've kind of gotten used to it, But imagine somebody who wasn't born into darkness, who wasn't born, having to deal with that history, and who was born, in a situation in which they were able to skip that history. Now imagine telling them that, hey, you are going to have to let go of your, soft identity, and you're going to have to identify with these group of people who have a traumatic history. And you know how they're being. You see how it is. And as she keeps talking, she proves to me how everybody knows that white people are privileged. Everybody knows that Black folks are quote unquote undermined everywhere. That's the reason why all across the world, from Japan to China to Europe, they always try to, progress towards whiteness, but always try to distance themselves in Blackness, because they all know this. So when you have a random, Asian, a random Middle East, a random Hispanic telling you race doesn't matter, why are you complaining? Remember that these same individuals, they would rather cut their throats than to quote unquote live their lives as a Black person. But keep in mind.
And I would do things. I mean, I still do. Like, I straighten my hair sometimes, and I would notice the difference in the way I was treated. Having more.
Now a lot of dudes in the comments. Now, when I made my previous video telling people like, hey, colorism is a real thing. Okay, colorism is a real thing, and people who tend to have straight hair, lighter skin, straighter noses, or tend to appear to be more white, tend to get a different treatment. When I talk about colorism, you have dudes in the chat getting in trouble. But here she's saying it, right? She noticed herself as a Black biracial, that whenever she would straighten her hair or try to look more white, her treatment got better. Keep that in mind.
Or ethnic ambiguity versus being perceived to be belonging to a certain ethnic group. And I would really challenge people who would put me in a box, because I never belonged. And I feel like that's part of the identity of mixedness, is that you don't.
No, it's not. No, it's that you did not want to be classified as Black. Okay, if you were classified as a white person, you would be happy. And actually, just watch.
Feel often like you belong. Like I didn't belong amongst my white friends. And when I would interact with Black kids at school, like, they would a lot of times be so mean to me. And
yes, because it's Black folks, right? Even though you're forced into our classification, right? Remember, it was white people who essentially literally are the ones that pushed the mulattoes into the Black classification, but where the meme was. Okay.
I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere. And I feel like that's the classic mixed kid experience, is feeling like you don't belong. And that's why I've always pushed so hard for this identity, our own identity, that is what mixed is, and that's what feels good to me. However, I've been thinking about that, since what happened with George Floyd, and since what's happening around the world. There's always been this internal something, and it's coming out now. And I've had and I don't know if you've had this, but I've had friends reach out to me and say, hey, I'm thinking about you. And what I've realized is that no matter how much I've asserted myself as being mixed, so many of them have always thought of me as Black. And it's been really hard for me to think about that and what that means, because I've never felt black. And I've been doing a lot of research into things like white fragility and just around race and protesting and things. And I've been noticing the more I've been doing that, the more people have been tagging me like, oh, black photographer, oh, hire this black photographer. And it just doesn't feel like me. It doesn't feel like who I am, and it hurts me. So I've been thinking a lot about why it hurts me.
And y'all, I don't know what she's going to say, but I have a strong indication that more than, and you can hear it, right? She knew that the black classification came, and she said it so when she was straightening her hair, her treatment got better. So she knew that the black classification, not just in America, but internationally, comes with certain, struggles. And she's crying because it's not, here's the problem, it's not black. This was so funny, right? Black people are not the one forcing her to be black. She said it herself, it's mostly her white friends. So it's mostly white people around her white friends, who are telling her, you're black. She doesn't want to be black. Black people are not forcing her to be black. It's white folks, white people. In other words, she's trying to be part of the white crowd, but it's those same white folks who are telling her, bitch, you are not one of us, you are black. And because of that, she is crying. But let's go ahead.
And it's hurt me because I've always this whole time felt like I would be dishonoring, I would be negating like this whole huge part of my family. But I've also realized something, that I've grown up in this culture, and I'm in the United States, but I believe it's the same no matter where you are in the world. I've grown up in a culture where we live, breathe, eat, sleep racist ideology. And I've been infected by the poison of racism, just like everybody else. And while there is a part of me that does believe in having an identity as a mixed person, I'm also now accepting that part of that was to distance myself from blackness, because I grew up in a culture that tells me that blackness is wrong and it's shameful and it's not as good.
Now, if you're a black person, a black male, like, oh, a black person, right? This is so eye-opening to me, because, when black folks around the world, the black diaspora, talks about the struggles black people go through, right? You'll have some random white European white person in the chat, or some random Hispanic, random Middle Easterner who wants to run through the chat, and be retarded. Well, the problem is that you guys need to pull yourself by your bootstrap. But here's the issue, though. One of the beauties about biracial is that they grow up in this weird, periphery in which they don't belong in any group. So they're able to look at all of these interactions in an independent way. And she says herself, right, growing up as a black biracial, she was able to look and see that, look, everywhere you look around the world, black people are being treated like shit. They're at the bottom. And so really, her calling herself mixed, her saying that, she didn't want to be called black, right? It wasn't because she cared about, quote unquote, being mixed or whatever. Is that she was really trying to not be classified as black. And I personally believe that the reason why she spent so much time more around white people, despite, quote unquote, all the abuse, is because really she wanted to be part of them. She wanted to be white. Because she said herself, right, it wasn't black folks that were trying to force her to call herself black, right? It was her white friends. So all the white people she was trying to fit in with were telling her, you are not one of us. You are black. You are black. And that hurt her so much, because In her mind, and you know what's so funny? This is literally what happened to Meghan Markle. Literally what, right? Meghan Markle spent her whole life in the United States, in America, trying to quote unquote escape her black classification. And she said, she literally said herself, right? She said herself, she's most of her life she identifies as mixed because she saw that as a way to escape the treatment that black folks felt. And for a long time, white people were able to accept that. But it wasn't until Meghan Markle tried to marry into a wealthy, white, powerful royal family that all of a sudden they said, hold on, Meghan. Yeah, we may have let you, go undercover as a mixed person, but we're not gonna let you come over here and be a part of our royal family. No. You're still a nigger. And the way the press, the British royal family, the UK, I'm like, if you read those tabloids, there was literally a tabloid in the UK that said that Meghan Markle is straight out of Compton. And for black folks, we know what that means, right? Those are racial attacks. It's a racial anthem, right? Why would this article imply that she's from Compton, right? It's kind of like, imagine a random white European saying, well, it's about Chicago. We know what they're trying to say. But see, when you call this out, all of a sudden now they want to quote unquote hide, they want to throw stones and hide their hands. And Meghan Markle right now is going through it because for so long she was able to escape it by being mixed, by claiming biracial. And really, what Meghan Markle did is what most mixed people, most black biracials, they're only black because they cannot be white. Let's get into it. Let's say the brutal truth, y'all. Most of these biracials don't want to be with you black, for they don't. They don't want you black. The only reason is because white people tell them you're black. And that's the reason why as soon as these black biracials have the opportunity, they sell out the community. They sell out black people. Let's keep it real. And I think that Meghan Markle represents what most black biracials want. Most black biracials want the opportunity to be assimilated into whiteness, to be a part of the white, diaspora. Like what Meghan Markle did. And the way they tried to separate themselves from blackness by saying they're mixed. Meghan Markle thought she made it. She thought she had successfully, she called herself mixed, so she didn't have to go through the black experience. She got married to Prince Harry. And although you have black women claiming her, she said, I'm not a black female. I'm a mixed woman, biracial. And so it's so funny that when she was getting married to a royal family, she wasn't a black female. She was biracial. But when the royal family called her a nigger and gave her that quote-unquote black treatment, and the entire white diaspora flamed her ass, saying you're not a white, you're not white. Now she and her husband have to leave the UK, go on documentaries, cry about racism. Because the reality is, it was never that black folks was trying to force you into our, is that you're just angry that white people don't accept you in the classification. And that's why I'm saying, look, as black folks, black diasporans, and by the way, other black folks are very good. I'm giving them right. If you go to South Africa, right, in South Africa, there's a whole classification called the colors, where people who have mixed race are a different category than black. And so I personally be like, black folks are right, and black people around the world. Black, that's why we have to start rejecting this one drop rule, because if you have an individual who is literally crying on camera because white people tell her that quote unquote you have to be black, think about this. Imagine a black biracial talking to you and it's crying to you because white people rejected her and now she has to quote unquote be black. How does that make you feel? And by the way, you're not black either, okay? Black card's been revoked. But let's keep going.
Good. And of course that's not true. And it's not my fault that I grew up in a culture that told me these things. But it's been impacting my behavior. And I've had to realize that I have racism that lives in me, just like everyone else. And this was one of the ways it's been coming out. And I've always thought about, you know, people who have said, yeah, you're Black, you need to own it, you're Black. And I've always thought about where that comes from, and it comes from this one drop rule, right?
Not y'all, what did I say, right? People would tell her, you're Black, you need to own it. And I bet you a lot of that was coming from a white friend. That's what she's heard.
Which was meant to torture, have an excuse to torture more people. Because as people started mixing, they either became closer to whiteness or they became people that you had the right lawfully to control. And I remember watching a little bit of Roots growing up, and just it traumatized me, and ever since then I've just avoided understanding that history because it just felt too scary to look at. Because the truth is, me, probably you, my cousins who have white skin, straight hair, and green eyes, because we share ancestors who are Black, we would have been tortured just like everybody else.
Yeah, like essentially what I said, like biracials not done. Black biracials know that they know this because they have also European features, that the closer you are to Blackness, the worse it is. But keep going.
And that's a really hard thing to realize when you grow up in a culture that is taught you subconsciously that because you're closer to whiteness, you're not like that. And that's the truth. And I don't want to be racist. I don't think anybody wants to be racist. And so I think the responsibility is seeing it and owning it and trying to change it. And what I've come to learn in the last few days is that Blackness is an umbrella. And it includes experiences from people all over the world. People who've grown up in different experiences in the continent of Africa, people who have grown up in different experiences in the United States, the Afro-Latinos in Central and South America, people all over the world, indigenous peoples all over the world. Like, it's Blackness is an umbrella that has room for people like us. And it's important right now. I mean, I guess it's always been important, but I'm realizing that right now it's really important to own that and to sit under that umbrella, because the more we come together and the more we support each other, the more change that can happen. And there's power in me saying, yes, I'm mixed and I'm Black. I'm Black. And
y'all... Man, no, you are not. You are mixed. Because this is what I'm talking about. She is literally... Because I feel like this is... If you're a Black person, this needs to be an eye-opener for you. Think about how she's literally crying as if, like, her father died. Like it's like, imagine somebody killed your whole family. That's how she's crying. She is just crying and weeping because she has to now, because the white society is forcing her in the Black classification. And for her, being Black is such a horrible, traumatic thing that she's crying. It's crazy to me. And the crazy part is this conversation is not just happening, amongst the ADOS FBA community. This conversation is also happening when it comes to Black Africans. Because for those who don't know, right, Africa itself is also in a weird situation because North Africa, and those who watched my previous videos notice, right, North Africa is mainly made up of essentially Arabs, right? Arabs who invaded the continent 1,000 years ago, right? North Africa was essentially colonized, right? Then you have Horn of Africa, right? Somalia, Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Djibouti. These are folks who are mixed between Arab and Black, right? When it comes to Black Africans who make up the majority of the continent, we do not consider Horn of Africans Black because Horn of Africans essentially are an entire, those 4 countries, Somalia, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Djibouti, those are countries of Black biracials. Those 4 countries are an entire group of people of mulattoes, just like her. And Black Africans say, look, yeah, you guys can essentially join the African Union for political reasons, but no, you are not a Black African. You guys are some mixed mulatto group. Even in Africa, right? In South Africa, other countries, right? We have a classification called colors for mulatto. So even when it comes to the Black indigenous group in Africa, we already made that separation, saying mulattoes are not Black. And I think that across the rest of the diaspora, there seems to be this movement where more and more Black folks around the world saying, yes, biracials should no longer be considered Black. And I think that's kind of where the Black diaspora is going, because when you have somebody like, when you have the average, somebody like this, right? And by the way, she represents the average biracial. When you have somebody like this, who's literally crying because white people are forcing them to be classified as Black. No. You are not Black. You know what? If being Black is that bad, you know what? You are biracial. That's right. Stay on that side. But anyway, let's keep going.
I think about coming out as gay, and I didn't even feel this much with it. I just came out and I had a party for myself and I felt great. But because of the racism that
Y'all, did you catch what she just said? This is very important. She literally just said that she felt happier coming out as a homosexual compared to her having to call herself Black. I want y'all to hear, listen to what she just said, right? She would rather be a homosexual than be classified as Black. Lord have mercy. And by the way, I don't support gay marriage or LGBT, so this is crazy to me. But this tells you just how much the world really views Blackness, to a point at which they would rather be part of the LGBT community. They would rather engage in homosexual activities than be classified as Black. Wow.
Tested over my whole life. I have all these feelings of shame and fear around identifying as Black. Wow. And I don't feel Black. I don't know what that feels like. I don't know. And I've been having conversations, and I had a conversation with my amazing cousin Desiree, who's also mixed, but identifies as a mixed Black woman. And I said out loud for the first time, which is so embarrassing to say, but I said out loud, I don't want to be Black.
And we can cut it off there. I think we can cut the video off there, right? She, at the end of the day, like I said the whole video, right? Most of these Black biracials, and they'll say they're mixed, they'll say, don't put me in a box. But when you actually put them in a corner, they will, when you put pressure on them, the truth will come out. And what is the truth? They don't want to be Black. They would love to be white. They don't want to be Black. And that's really it. There's really nothing more to add there. But anyway, guys, tell me in the chat what you guys think about this video. Do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you feel about this? Make sure to like, share, subscribe. And with that being said, hammer out.